Hey everyone, welcome back to Portal of Wisdom. I am back today with a new story for you. So if you are new to the channel, like and subscribe and click that little post notification bell so you get alerted when I post new videos. And now on to today's topic. Today's topic is going to be another lost gold story. These are the stories everyone seems to love, and this one takes place in Southern California. And the title of this one is Tuberculosis Slim's Lost Dark Gold Field. So the beginning of the story takes place in Southern California in the desert near a little town of Glamis. Today this area is known for all of the recreation that happens at the massive sand dunes here. But around the turn of the century, sometime right around 1900, there had been some mining going on northeast of the town. The mining was called the Mesquite Diggings, and mining was going on here from 1876 on, and had varying levels of success through the years. Glamis is kind of at the south end of the Chocolate Mountains, or the Chocolates as they were known, especially to the prospectors. It seems the mining started out in the early years as dry washing operations, and smaller amounts of gold and silver had been found here then. And then around the turn of the century, a gentleman with the nickname of Slim was in this area, and he wandered into the mining camp that was here at that point. And Slim was a terminal tuberculosis patient, and he was in his later days due to the disease's progression into the later stages. So Slim didn't have a whole lot of time left on Earth and was apparently out trying to make the best of his final days. And I believe back in those days, a lot of doctors did prescribe for tuberculosis patients to be outside and get some fresh air in the warm southwestern deserts. So this very well might be why Slim was in this area, because that was a common thing that doctors prescribed for patients to live their final days and maybe stretch them out a little bit longer. So in camp, he befriended a man named Tom Clark, who was doing quite well on his claim and was said to be pulling around $90 per day from his claim, which was good money back in those days. So Tom was feeling generous and likely felt sorry for Slim and his situation, so he gave him two $20 gold pieces, and he told him, "There's a lot of gold out there in the Chocolates and the surrounding deserts yet to be found." And he told him to go further up the Chocolates and see what you can find. So from here, Slim hired a burro outfit, and he started off into the mountains to try his luck at finding gold. It's not said if it was just a one-man outfit that accompanied him with rented burros, or if it was a couple of two or three people that he rented burros from and they accompanied him. We don't really know who was with Slim beyond that he rented burros, and it may have been maybe just one more gentleman with him. We don't really know for sure. From Desert Magazine in July of 1955, it was stated that Slim's travels were as such. From Glamis, he traveled northwest along the Chocolate Mountains. He halted for a while at Hayden or Hayburn Well. So it's either Hayden Well or Hayburn Well. He rounded the point and entered Salvation Pass, camping at Salvation Spring. From here on his path is part of the aerial gunnery range. I believe that's what is there now. From Salvation Spring, he trekked northeast, passing entirely through the Chocolates. Sometime thereafter, he camped at Chuckawalla Well, so another well or location for water, at the base of Little Chuckawalla. I don't know if that was a mountain name. I think that might have been the name of a mountain, and at the base was Chuckawalla Well, and it had the location, obviously, to stop for water. So it was said that the burros really liked it here at Chuckawalla Well, probably likely due to the fresh water and the grass to eat. And so the burros were really liking it and probably drinking plenty and eating some really good grass that, if this well or spring happened to be constantly flowing, then it may have had some good vegetation around it that the burros were really enjoying. But Slim had a hard time getting these burros to push on the next day. But he finally did, and there they headed west on the old trail. So there were 2 old trails in this area. It could have been an old Native American trail or the abandoned Bradshaw stagecoach and freight trail. Either way, from here he was heading west toward Tabesca Tank and prospecting all along the way. Now, if you don't know what a tank is a depression that typically holds water, kind of like a temporary pond, and it may be dry, or certain times of the year after some rains, it may hold water for quite a while, like a small pond. So anyhow, so he's heading towards Tabesca Tank, probably for another place to, get water and let the mules drink and everything. So anyhow, at the point that they get here and they stop to get some water and everything, it may not be super clean water like Chuckawalla Well sounded like. That was more of a constantly flowing spring, not just a depression where water may collect and it might be muddy or whatever. But anyhow, that appears to be the case. Tabesca Tank may have resembled a small muddy pond and wasn't the best water to drink, but sometimes water is water when you're in the desert. So they made it to Tabesca Tank, and that night the burros took off, likely while Slim was sleeping, and the next day he had to trace the tracks east, and he ended up back at Chuckawalla Well, where he finally found the burros. And of course, like we mentioned, they likely liked the clean water and grass here and remembered which way it was and, to go back that direction, and they did that. So likely they just preferred to be there. So once he rounded these burros up, he again was headed west to the water at Tabesca Tank. All along his trip, he was prospecting and watching the hills for anything interesting, but this trip was taking a toll on Slim, especially with the extra back and forth that he had to go to retrieve the mules. And he was wearing out pretty fast and running out of energy as he's on this trip and going between these water holes and trying to examine the landscape and look for his own gold out there. And so his disease was taking a toll on him and his body. As he left Tabesca Tank, he was heading west to Dos Palmas near the railroad station. And according to Desert Magazine, somewhere along the trail, where it crossed an elevation, he sat down to rest. He noticed the earth around him was very red. Slim filled a sack with it. He loaded the sack on a burro, and he continued along the trail. So when he arrived at Dos Palmas, he parted from his burro team that he had hired, and he had his red dirt and rock samples that he collected there assayed. He discovered that the sack of ore had $120 worth of gold in it. Slim, of course, was very excited by this good news, but it would all be for naught. By this point, Slim was not doing very well at all. He could not imagine trying to make the trek back into these mountains to try to relocate this gold discovery. So he did the next best thing that he could think of. He wrote to his generous friend Tom Clark back in Glamis at the Mesquite diggings. In a crude envelope, he included some dark gold nuggets and a crude map to the gold location. He also let Tom know that he was not doing well and he may not last too much longer. But he was hoping to see him and be able to explain his adventures and his great find in person. Then he mailed the envelope off to Tom at the Mesquite diggings. Tom came quickly to comfort his dying friend, but by the time he arrived, Slim had already passed on. At this point, Tom just went back to the Mesquite diggings since his claim was still doing quite well. And he may have figured that he would eventually go look for Slim's gold location once his Mesquite diggings claim dried up. It appears that Tom worked his current claim for many more years. Years later, Tom stated that his house had been robbed and searched 3 different times, so it appears someone may have been looking for the map that Tom had hidden. Tom never mentioned to any friends or family, or anyone really for that matter, that anyone had found the map during the break-in. So it sounds like people broke in and were looking for the map and stuff like that, but I guess that might be why there was 3 different break-ins. Some people came looking the first time, didn't find what they were looking for, eventually came again, and eventually came again and couldn't find what they were looking for and then gave up. But it appears he did at least tell a couple people close to him that he had a map to the gold location and some gold, some dark gold nuggets from, this location that Slim had. And of course he had this proof to prove it, but it seems that he never did show anyone the map. So he might have told the wrong person. They came looking for the map a few times or whatever, never found it, and he stayed working at his Mesquite diggings for quite some time, but apparently someone knew and came to look for the map, and nothing is said about anyone ever finding the map. So it appears Tom still had the map likely for quite some time. In 1942, Tom hopped on a bus in Blythe, California, and he was headed to Los Angeles to visit family and friends. Somewhere along the way, Tom disappeared and was never seen again. He was 84 years old at that point. I'm not quite sure what Tom's condition was like at this time in his life or how he could have disappeared. If he was getting senile or forgetful or showing signs of dementia, then maybe it's possible he got off the bus at one of the desert stops in the Mojave Desert along the way to Los Angeles and wandered into the desert and succumbed to the heat and dehydration while possibly being disoriented. We don't really have any idea what happened to him or what condition he was in when he got on the bus. But obviously at 84, he may not have been doing nearly so well anymore. Some people that knew some of the details from the story, likely close friends and family that had prospecting knowledge and were familiar with the area, had possibly seen the rough dark gold and nearly black nuggets that Slim had handed off to Tom, but some of these people suspected that Slim actually found them instead at Coyote Holes. And I don't know if this is because this resembled ore found in that area. I'm guessing maybe that was the case. It resembled stuff from that area, but we don't really know for sure. But some other prospectors thought that maybe it had originated from Coyote Holes. At the point that Tom disappeared, no one really knew what happened to Slim's map, and I don't think it had ever turned up anywhere. Now, it does seem that this location could still be out there. It very well could be on federal land on the aerial gunnery range, or it may not be, depending on where along this route Slim found this gold. It's an intriguing story, but not likely that it could be found due to the location, because it seems fairly likely that it could be on the military land now. But that is the story of Tuberculosis Slim's lost gold find in, I don't know if it would be in the Chocolate Mountains. I guess it would be in some mountains west of there. Thanks for listening, and if you have any comments, you can leave them in the comments section.